Arlong Park was already a nightmare. But this time, the first one walking through the shattered gates is not Luffy, it is Usopp. The moment he steps forward, the entire park goes silent. Fishmen who once laughed at humans losing their minds as a single slingshot is raised, an invisible killing aura rolling over the battlefield like pressure from the deep sea. In canon, this is where Usopp runs, panics, stalls, and survives through grit and tricks. Here, Arlong's officers do not even reach the pool. A single shot detonates the tower behind them, stone and water exploding in synchronized tremors, forcing Arlong himself to shield his crew. Just how much does the story change when the so-called weakest Straw Hat is the one that even Arlong refuses to underestimate? Usopp has always been designed as the human baseline in a world of monsters. Oda made him the liar whose stories are bigger than his power. The boy who talks about giants and legendary snipers long before he has the ability to back any of it up. His growth is a slow awakening, a long, painful crawl from cowardice to courage that stretches from Syrup Village all the way to Dressrosa and Wano. But what if that gap closed years earlier? What if, before the crew even touched Reverse Mountain, the Straw Hats, normal human, stopped being normal? Imagine an East Blue where Usopp unlocks brutal accuracy, terrifying engineering, and early hockey-like intuition, turning every battlefield into his personal shooting range. Thanks to his new ability, his lies about taking down massive enemies are not jokes. They are spoilers. This is not just Usopp gets strong for fan service. It is a complete rewrite of early One Piece physics and psychology. The moment he becomes a frontline monster, Nami's desperate stand in Arlong Park, Zoro's blood-drenched duels, even Luffy's role as the automatic strongest fighter all start to bend around him. The crazy part was that this one human gaining power too early threatens to destroy the entire emotional balance Oda built around fear, struggle, and earned bravery. Canon Usopp takes hundreds of chapters for his stories to catch up to reality. His legendary sugar snipe in Dressrosa and his influence in Wano feel like the payoff to a lifetime of running away first and standing firm second. Here, that payoff arrives in East Blue. The first sign is Arlong's officers dropping before Luffy throws a punch. The next is Baroque Works agents never making it to their planned fights because a shot from beyond the horizon already ended them. If this version of Usopp exists, then Alabasta's war, Enies Lobby's rescue, Sabaudy's disaster, Dressrosa's chaos, and even Wano's final clash all twist into something far more lethal and precise. God Usopp stops being an ironic gag and mutates into a legend whispered by Marines and pirates who watched impossible shots decide entire arcs from miles away. So where does the timeline break? And how far does the ripple spread when the weakest Straw Hat was never weak? Setting the rules, how strong is early strong Usopp? So to make that legend believable, the rules have to be brutal. How strong is early strong Usopp, and what does that actually mean on the battlefield? First, this isn't a random meteor of power crashing into the story. This is Usopp's natural ability tree getting fast-tracked. His sniping, his engineering, his creativity, and the first tremors of his future hockey are all pushed forward, refined years ahead of schedule. But what if every talent Oda teased in East Blue reached a Dressrosa adjacent ceiling long before Water 7 ever happened? The benchmark is simple and terrifying. In this timeline, Usopp's effective combat level sits somewhere between post-Enies Lobby and early Dressrosa Usopp, specifically in range, precision, and tactical thinking. He can thread shots through a city, he can read a chaotic battlefield, and he can set layered traps that turn an entire dock, forest, or plaza into his kill zone. However, his emotional awakening is incomplete. The moment he pulls the slingshot, he still flinches. He still doubts. He still lies to cover fear. So what actually changes and what doesn't? Physically, he is still human. His durability does not suddenly rival monsters like Luffy, Zoro, or later Jinbei. A direct hit from an Arlong, a crocodile, or a pacifista will still destroy him. But from the backline, his offensive output and battlefield control spike into a different tier. Oil stars, impact shells, and plant-based ammunition become coordinated artillery. He dominates sightlines, controls space, and uses psychological warfare to shatter enemy morale before the first punch lands. Here is the core rule that locks the entire scenario together. The lie becomes reality principle. Every major lie Usopp tells in East Blue and early Grand Line is treated as foreshadowed potential he can approximate much earlier. Giant goldfish? He develops long-range explosives and bait rounds that mimic Sea King-level threats. Terrifying monsters in the forest? That becomes pop green-style constructs and illusionary smoke that turn night battles into horror shows. Crazy gadgets and insane ships? Thanks to his new ability to prototype faster, his workshop output catches up to his mouth. The crazy part was that this doesn't break internal logic. It leans into it. One Piece already showed that his tall tales slowly sync with reality over hundreds of chapters. Here, that process accelerates. The first sign something is wrong with the timeline is when a harmless boast in Syrup Village suddenly shows up as a real tool in Alabasta. With that power ceiling, the stakes change completely. Usopp can assassinate key commanders before Luffy even reaches them, blow up powder stores, and snipe Den Den Mushi to blind entire enemy fleets. He can end fights before they start, or force villains like Crocodile and Enel to reveal trump cards far earlier than in canon. Just how much does that warp everyone else's growth? Does Zoro still chase the strongest swordsman if a sniper keeps stealing his finishes? Does Luffy still charge head first when the war is already half won from miles away? As this version of Usopp steps into Syrup Village and Arlong Park with that aura of unseen threat, the first arcs that truly fracture are the East Blue battles themselves. The divergence point. A different Syrup Village. To see where everything fractures, the story has to go back to the quietest place in East Blue, Syrup Village. On paper, it is peaceful, harmless, almost boring. But what if this sleepy village wasn't just Usopp's goodbye stage, but the battlefield where his strength truly awakens? Syrup Village is perfect because it is everything to him at once. It is his home, his first real war, and the last shadow of Usopp's back disappearing over the horizon. This is where his lies stop being games and start being shields. The moment he stands between Kaya's mansion and the Black Cat pirates, the series finally treats his dream like a weapon instead of a punchline. In this timeline, the first sign that something is different comes years earlier. While the villagers laugh at his pirate stories, Usopp is alone in the woods, building slingshots that can bend steel and seeds that burst into choking smoke and binding vines. They are crude pop green prototypes, unstable but lethal. Now, his engineering talent and obsession turned the entire hill line around the village into a hidden firing range long before Kuro ever moves. Then the ambush night arrives, and the stress hits a level the canon version never reaches. Django's hypnotic ring swings. Kaya is trembling behind him, and dozens of pirates charge up the slope. Usopp's heart is pounding so hard it feels like tremors inside his chest. The moment he closes his eyes and fires blind through the fog, 3 pirates drop at once. Their blades never reach the top. His shots curve just slightly, like the bullets are listening to his fear. That is his crude observation haki awakening. Not refined, not trained, but enough to feel killing intent as hot sparks on his skin and to track footsteps he cannot see. Thanks to his new ability, the slope stops being a death trap and turns into a sniper kill zone. Django tries to rush the front line and gets his chakram hand pinned to a rock from half a cliff away. Every time a black cat steps onto the path, a knee shatters, a rifle explodes, or a rope snaps around their throat. The crazy part was that this forces Kuro's hand. He cannot stroll in with fake glasses and a butler act when half his crew is being dismantled by an unseen gunner. He reveals himself early, sprinting through the chaos with Soru-like speed, trying to destroy the source of this unexpected power before it ruins his entire plan. But even Kuro's speed is blunted when the battlefield itself is against him. Usopp has pre-rigged tripwires, oil patches, and explosive stars into the terrain. Each missed slash detonates another star, as each dodge drives Kuro into a tighter killing lane. The villagers and Kaya watch from behind shattered windows as the liar they mocked commands the night like a general. Psychologically, this is a total inversion. They do not just see courage, they see competence that borders on terrifying. Every old story about giants, fishmen, and sea kings suddenly feels less like fantasy and more like a preview. Just how much of what he said was actually a limit, not an exaggeration? By the time dawn hits, Kuro is on his knees, glasses broken, claws buried in the dirt. Usopp is bleeding, shaking, but still aiming straight at his head. Luffy walks up, watching this sniper who just soloed an entire raid. and a different kind of grin spreads across his face. He is not just seeing a brave warrior of the sea. He is seeing a future monster sniper, and the next arcs are about to pay the price for that choice. East Blue Remixed, Bharati, Arlong Park, and the first shockwaves. The moment that future monster sniper steps onto the Bharati, the entire restaurant becomes a different battlefield. Before, Krieg's assault was chaos, bodies flying, cooks scrambling. But what if this time there was a long-range predator already set up on the upper deck? Bag of ammo at his feet, goggles down, hands steady. As Luffy smashes through Krieg's front line and Sanji trades brutal kicks at close range, Usopp turns the war into target practice. He doesn't charge, he anchors. Every cannon crew Krieg tries to set up, deleted. Lead stars slam into fuses, black stars punch through barrels, and explosions erupt before the shots can even fire. The first sign that this is not the same. Usopp comes when Pearl tries to advance, shields blazing, threatening to destroy the entire kitchen staff in one sweep. A flaming fire star arcs in from absurd distance, threads the gap between his shields, and detonates on his smug face. Pearl never reaches the cooks. Gin, coughing and stunned, barely gets to move before impact rounds shred the chains on Sanji and force Krieg to reposition. Thanks to his new ability and upgraded tools, Usopp becomes the artillery unit the Straw Hats never had, stripping away every layer of pressure so Luffy can focus purely on breaking Krieg himself. Then Arlong Park arrives, and the real nightmare begins for the fishmen. In canon, Usopp runs from Chu in sheer terror. Here, the chase flips. Chu dives into the water, confident in his home turf, only to feel tremors ripple through the sea as underwater traps detonate around him. Oil-soaked lines, floating mines, and flares turn the bay into a burning maze. Usopp doesn't wait on the front line. He stations himself in the village, uses rooftops and tree lines as cover, and hunts. Long-range shots hammer Chu every time he surfaces. Fire-based ammo ignites the very pools the fishmen rely on. Their supposed advantage turned into a blazing prison. Just how much does that change the aura of fear around Arlong's crew when their water assassin is being sniped from a town away? With side threats erased before they can swarm, tactical synergy explodes. Zoro doesn't have to waste strength cleaning up fodder. He can lock straight onto Hachi or even back Luffy up against Arlong. Sanji is free to intercept Karubi instantly, or stand beside Nami when she confronts her past instead of being dragged into a drawn-out brawl. The battle becomes shorter, more surgical, less desperate. The Straw Hats look less like a ragtag group and more like a coordinated strike unit built around a terrifying sniper corps. And the crazy part was that the world notices. Rumors spread across East Blue of a human sniper demon who destroyed pirate crews from beyond visible range. Bounty posters stop being just about the rubber boy. Early drafts in Marine offices start flagging Usopp as a dangerous long-range specialist, a man whose shots can decide an entire war before it starts. Pattern interrupt. Cut forward. A dim Marine briefing room, years later. A projector clicks. A younger officer points at grainy images from Bharati and Arlong Park, outlining trajectories, casualty maps, and unexplained explosions. This one, he says, tapping Usopp's face, was the first sign. Underestimate his ability, and your fleet gets erased. Then the scene snaps back to East Blue, smoke still rising over Arlong Park, Luffy laughing, Nami crying, and Usopp quietly packing away his slingshot. No one on that beach understands yet how far this awakening of his courage and firepower will go. But the next seas and the next enemies are about to find out. Crossing the line, Grand Line entry with a monster sniper. The smoke over Arlong Park fades, and the Going Mary's bow rises toward the red line. The moment the current grabs the ship at Reverse Mountain, this isn't the same terrified crew from canon. The sea roars, the log pose spins, and while Nami screams course corrections and Luffy laughs into the storm, Usopp is at the figurehead, eyes narrowed, calmly calculating angles. Instead of clinging to the railing and begging for his life, he braces his upgraded slingshot, tracks the rushing canal walls, and fires steel-tipped anchors into the rock to subtly correct their path. One shot to pull the bow, one shot to stabilize the stern, one flare star fired straight up as a timing signal for Nami. Just how much does the crew's fear drop when the weakest Straw Hat is the one treating Reverse Mountain like a target range? Then comes Laboon. In canon, Usopp panics. Here, he's already reading the whale's movements, feeling every swell like tremors under his feet. He pops smoke stars to block Laboon's vision instead of cracking the mast, fires a harmless paint round that splashes a giant smiley face across the whale's scar to get his attention, and then launches a rope-tethered buoy right in front of Laboon's eye. It becomes a floating eye contact point so Luffy can talk without the ship being smashed. Thanks to his new ability, the crew enters the Grand Line with the quiet realization: if the sea tries to destroy them, their sniper will shoot back. Whiskey Peak is where this new aura really shows. The town throws its fake welcome party, the entire crew eats and drinks, and on the surface, everything looks the same. But what if the first sign of danger isn't Zoro waking up surrounded by bounty hunters, but Usopp's sharpened observation haki catching Killing intent on the rooftops? While the others sleep, he's already gone. Silent steps, slow breathing. One by one, Baroque Works agents on the high ground drop. It is knocked out by impact rounds to the temple or pinned to chimneys with weighted cables. By the time Zoro starts his own rampage, the battlefield is half decided from above. The Straw Hats never wake up surrounded. The ambush is reversed before it begins. Luffy feels that difference instantly. As the Grand Line chaos ramps up, his leadership shifts without him even noticing. He charges into crowds faster, dives at giants and agents and unknown powers with even less hesitation. Because there is a new unspoken rule. If something goes wrong, Usopp will cover him from anywhere. The captain's recklessness is no longer pure stupidity. It's backed by a long-range safety net that keeps turning bad situations into one-sided hunts. And that creates a new kind of pressure. Nami watches Usopp read winds and trajectories better than her charts predict canon arcs. Chopper sees a normal human landing fight-deciding blows from a distance he can barely see. Even Sanji, whose pride rests on kicking his way through any battlefield, has to accept that there are fights where the sniper ends them before he can even light a cigarette. Admiration mixes with unease. If Usopp keeps awakening like this, what does that say about everyone else? News of that impact doesn't stay local? As Baroque Works scrambles to report repeated mission failures, one detail keeps appearing in the intel. A Straw Hat sniper who hits targets beyond normal human range, who removes entire squads before they can enter the war. Inside rain dinners, agents whisper that this monster might be the strongest piece on Luffy's board. Hot Crocodile listens once, lets the reports finish, and waves them away. A human with that kind of power? Ridiculous. He dismisses it as exaggeration from frightened underlings. But the crazy part was that this time, the rumors were still underestimating him. So what happens when Crocodile finally steps onto a battlefield where every grain of sand he moves is already inside a sniper's sights? Alabasta, rewritten. The desert. Belongs to the sniper, Crocodile walks into Alabasta, expecting a desert that obeys him. But what if the sand itself is already mapped, measured, and weaponized by someone else? The war for the kingdom turns into something he never planned for. A sniper's battlefield. The first sign is subtle. Baroque Works patrols just stop reporting in. Out in the dunes, Tasha, where heat haze blurs the horizon and mirages trick the strongest warriors, Usopp turns the entire desert into a shooting gallery. Thanks to his new ability, he's already prepared. Heat-resistant ammo that doesn't warp, lenses wrapped in cloth to cut glare, and sand-colored camo that lets him disappear into dunes. While Luffy charges forward, Usopp is above, on ridges and half-buried ruins, calling out enemy positions, sniping scouts before they even see Vivi's group, and using long-range signal shots to redirect the crew around ambushes. He weaponizes mirages. A decoy flare here, a smoke star there, and suddenly Baroque Works squads are firing into empty dunes while the Straw Hats slip past. Every time a rebel spotter thinks he sees Vivi, a shot kicks up sand at his feet, warning, not killing. Usopp is protecting both armies at once, whilst bleeding Crocodile's information network without destroying Alabasta's future. The moment he runs into Mr. Four and Miss Merry Christmas, the tone of that battle changes completely. No more desperate gag fight where he survives through stubbornness alone. This Usopp treats them like a live fire exercise. He reads the 4-ton bat's timing, calculates the arc, and starts shooting the shells mid-flight, detonating them harmlessly in the air. Each impact sends tremors through the ground, but he uses that too, tracking tunnel routes by how the sand shifts under his feet. Then he starts destroying the terrain itself. Impact stars slam into key tunnel intersections, collapsing entire routes and trapping Miss Merry Christmas underground. He forces Mr. Four into open sun, where a barrage of precision shots batters him back before Chopper even has to gamble his life. Just how much does that change the Straw Hats' aura when their weakest member is the one locking down an officer pair with calculated battlefield-level control? And people are watching. Civilians hiding in ruined towns, rebel scouts peering through sandstorms, royal soldiers clinging to Alubarna's walls. They start seeing impossible things. A Baroque works officer dropping from a shot no one heard, a cannon disabled from beyond visual range, a rider's rifle shattered the instant he aims at Vivi. Rumors spread of a guardian spirit in the desert, a sniper that punishes anyone who targets the princess. The crazy part was that this is the first real seed of God Usopp, years before Dressrosa. Meanwhile, Full Crocodile's support structure is under silent attack. Usopp tracks Spider's cafe agents through the dunes, picks off couriers, and sabotages bomb placements with delayed fuse shots that destroy explosives before they reach crowded streets. Mr. 3 never gets a clean setup when every wax construct is targeted the second it rises. Mr. 1 moves through the city, but each leap to a rooftop is met with a concussive blast that chips his blades and slows his advance. Then comes the pattern interrupt, the clock tower. In canon, Pell's suicidal flight feels like the only hope. Here, as the cannon prepares to fire, there is already a lone figure on a distant rooftop, breath-held, slingshot drawn. Usopp lines up a shot through heat haze across open sky at a bomb designed to destroy an entire square. Does he shoot the fuse? The barrel? The support chain? The series forces a reevaluation of that climax when the strongest weapon in the city isn't a devil fruit, it's a sniper no one can see. And Crocodile, still believing himself untouchable as sand, is about to discover what happens when even a Logia's war is fought under someone else's sights. Skypia and the first taste of myth. When lies start to stick, Crocodile was the rehearsal. Skypia is the first true mythic battlefield for this new Usopp. The crew lands in a sea of clouds ruled by a self-proclaimed god whose divine punishment strikes from nowhere. For most of the Straw Hats, it feels like walking into a war against an invisible executioner. But what if, this time, there is already someone on the ship whose entire ability is built around seeing what others can't? Adchasen, the first sign, comes in the white sea fog before Upper Yard is even in sight, while everyone else just feels an eerie silence. Usopp's observation haki starts buzzing like distant tremors under his skin. He hears dials click before they fire. He senses presences in the clouds before they appear. The moment a masked priest tries to ambush the Going Merry from above, Usopp is already turned, sling drawn, pop, green, loaded. One shot, impact dial shattered, priest sent spinning into the cloud sea. From that point on, his role in Skypia is completely reframed. He is no longer the guy screaming and hiding behind trees. He becomes the crew's anti-ambush radar, walking point through the Upper Yard forest, calling out positions, spacing, angles. While Enel's priests rely on mantra to stalk and toy with intruders, Usopp uses his early awakening of observation to partially jam their rhythm, forcing them into real battles instead of executions. Thanks to his new ability, he can feel when a priest's focus shifts toward Nami, or Chopper, or Robin, and he responds not with panic but with traps, vines rigged with explosive stars, shell-lined clearings that redirect blasts, dummy heat signatures made from burning dials. Just how much does a god's advantage matter when the entire jungle has been pre-sighted, pre-measured, and turned into a sniper's maze? And this is where Skypia's obsession with gods twists the knife. Every time a priest falls to an impossible angle shot from somewhere in the clouds, the survivors don't see technique. They see a miracle. Enel's divine soldiers, raised to believe that punishment only falls downward from their god, but start whispering about something else. A sniper spirit from the Blue Sea, whose shots bend around trees, ricochet off dials, and destroy targets that Mantra swore were safe. The crazy part was that Usopp's old lies about giants, monsters, legendary warriors suddenly have a new cousin, stories about a Blue Sea god of the sling. That is where the internal war starts. Usopp always wanted his tall tales to close the gap between who he was and who he wished he could be. Now, reality keeps sprinting past his own fiction. Giants? he fought alongside one in Little Garden. Monsters, he's sniping priests who ride lightning. A heroic warrior of the sea, Skypians are bowing their heads when he walks by, begging for protection from Enel's wrath. What happens to a liar's heart when the world insists on treating every step as destiny? His confrontation with Enel himself makes that tension brutal. Usopp cannot beat lightning, not yet, but he can wound the idea of invincibility. While Luffy charges the front, Usopp hangs back in the clouds, targeting the Arc Maxim. He snipes connection dials, fuel lines, and structural bolts, forcing Enel to waste power and attention on repairs. At one point, he lands a blind shot that cracks a gold conductor, just as Enel is preparing a massive Raygo. The blast still forms, but it misfires, buying precious seconds for the crew. For the first time, Enel doesn't see a background extra. He feels an annoying, persistent presence outside his mantra's comfort zone, a human static that refuses to be predicted. A bug shouldn't be able to interfere with a god's plan. Yet, every time he tries to erase the sniper, the target has already moved, already set another trap, already adjusted the battlefield. By the time the bell rings and the sky turns blue, Skypia's people have a new legend. They talk about the rubber man who punched a god, yes, but they also whisper about the unseen blue sea god of the sling whose invisible shots guided the war. That phrase doesn't die in the clouds. It sinks. Years later, on a very different battlefield, those same words will mutate into a chant, God Usopp, echoing through Dressrosa. But the circumstances and the weight on his shoulders will be nothing like Skypia, because next time the lie will come first, and the entire world will be watching to see if reality dares to keep up. Water 7 and Enies Lobby. Does a strong Usopp still break? Dressrosa will turn Usopp's lies into legend. But before that, Water 7 has to break him. And this is where early strength cuts the deepest. Landing in Water 7, this Usopp isn't the crew's weakest link. He is their artillery, their strategist, the man who can turn any alleyway into a battlefield. Shipwrights respect his engineering on sight. Frankie family grunts flinch when they remember the tremors from that one exploding star that nearly destroyed their entire hideout. He is useful, he's feared. He is finally close to the warrior he always pretended to be. But what if that usefulness is exactly what makes the going merry decision unbearable? In canon, Usopp clings to the ship because it's his bond with Kaya and his own worth. Here, thanks to his new ability to reinforce the hull, patch fractures with experimental coatings, and even jury-rig impact-dampening rigs along the keel, he truly believes he can fix anything. Noah's the first sign something is wrong is not the diagnosis. It's the way he stares at the broken ribs of the Mary like a doctor refusing a terminal verdict. If his power can destroy battleships, then surely it can save one tiny caravel. Right? So when Luffy still says, "We're leaving her," it isn't just a captain rejecting sentiment. It is the strongest man Usopp knows telling him to his face, "Your power isn't enough." That's why the war over one ship escalates into a duel that feels like an execution. The moment he challenges Luffy, the entire crew feels the shift. This isn't a slingshot duel anymore. This is a sniper with near Dressrosa range, custom impact shells, smoke grids, and trap layer instincts fighting a future pirate king in a cramped dock. Every step Luffy takes is mined. Every blind spot is covered. Explosive stars stagger gearless Luffy. Impact nets redirect his charge, and observation-sharp reactions let Usopp dance just outside each punch. Just how much does it hurt when Luffy finally pushes through all of that and still wins? The crazy part was that this brutal competence doesn't disappear at Enies Lobby. It multiplies. On that stone battlefield, Usopp doesn't just stand on the tower as Sogeking. He owns the sky. From a sniper's throne above the gate, he tags Spondam from absurd range, shattering the man's Den Mushi, blowing out Buster Call receivers, and methodically erasing siege cannons before they can even aim. Marines feel an invisible aura of death every time they step into the open. The lower ranks don't slow the Straw Hats. They dissolve. But what happens when one man's ability is so overwhelming that the crew unconsciously turns him into a living turret instead of a comrade? As Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji storm the front, shouting their declaration of war, Usopp is alone on the parapets, unseen, unheard, carrying the entire long-range battle on his shoulders. He is essential yet emotionally isolated, guarding the rear while everyone else gets to scream their defiance to the world. Pattern interrupt. In canon, King. Sniping the world government flag is a miracle. A single impossible shot that shocks the entire plaza. Here, the shot is the same, but the context isn't. The world has already heard rumors of an East Blue sniper who sinks warships, who hits officers from beyond normal eyesight, whose God Usopp title started as a joke and hardened into fear. Flag still burns. Justice still falls silent. But this time, the question isn't, who did that? And it's, if this is what he can do from a tower, what happens when that power finally walks to the front gate? And that question will haunt the next stage of his awakening. Sabaody, Marineford, and the shadow of Usopp. That question follows the crew all the way to Sabaody, because the moment a celestial dragon raises a gun at Hachi, there is already a monster sniper sighting down the entire auction house. In canon, Luffy's punch is a point of no return. Here, it is still the spark, but Usopp turns it into controlled demolition. The first sign of his new role is when those explosive slave collars start to beep. While everyone panics, Usopp's hands don't shake. Pop greens lash out like living scalpels, prying mechanisms open. Jamming triggers, forcing detonations to misfire. He doesn't destroy the entire system, but he buys seconds. And on Sabaody, seconds are everything. As pacifistas march in, the battlefield shifts. Thanks to his new ability and refined plant ammo, Usopp blinds them with flash pollen and corrosive spores, turning those metal faces into useless sensors. He carpets retreat paths with impact seeds that erupt into smoke, sticky sap, and concussive tremors. The Straw Hats push deeper, hit harder, retreat cleaner. Just how much does that change the outcome? Enough to make Kizaru adjust his aim? Enough to force Sentomaru to call in more units? But it does not stop Kuma. When the paw prints appear, even this awakened sniper cannot shoot down a concept. The crew still scatters, but they scatter knowing they only survived that long because of him. And somewhere on another ship, an older sniper notices. Word spreads through the war-torn seas about a straw hat with impossible range who tags Marines through blizzards and knocks weapons from hands without killing. Pirates whisper a single comparison. Usopp. But what if the world starts asking whether the son has already surpassed the father? Oda showed Usopp as Shanks's confident, smiling gun. Now picture a quiet cutaway. A bar on some lawless coast, a transponder snail crackling about God Usopp on Sabaody. Usopp pauses mid-drink. No dialogue, just a slow grin, a shadowed eye, and the unspoken realization that his lies back in Syrup Village have turned into something terrifyingly real. When Marineford erupts, Usopp's body is not on that plaza, but his aura is. Brief lines in briefing rooms shift from Straw Hat Luffy, son of dragon, to Straw Hat Luffy, allied with that sniper. Some officers argue that this war cannot afford another long-range monster on the level of the Red Hair Pirates. If Luffy escapes, the narrative goes, the next Marineford will feature not just Whitebeard's quakes, but island-spanning shots that erase Admiral's blind spots. That pressure changes the time skip completely. On Boyan Archipelago, Usopp is no longer training just to catch up. He is training to stop being a walking disaster. Every pop green that could destroy an entire platoon becomes a test of restraint. He practices threading seeds between flies, not skulls. He learns to fire warning shots that shave hair, not limbs. The crazy part was that this forces him to gain the emotional maturity he skipped back when his power exploded overnight. He starts asking, should this shot be taken? Instead of only, can this shot hit? By the time 2 years pass, the question hanging over Sabaody is far heavier than before. If pre-time skip Usopp could already tilt Sabaody and haunt Marineford from across the world, then what kind of monster steps back onto that archipelago after 2 years of focused awakening? And when that upgraded sniper enters Dressrosa's birdcage or Wano's war, does he simply support the charge? Or does his next shot rewrite those arcs from the first trigger pull? Post-time skip overdrive. Dressrosa and the birth of a true god. Dressrosa is where that question gets answered in the loudest way possible. Because the moment this upgraded Usopp steps into a country wrapped in strings and lies, the battlefield stops being Doflamingo's stage and starts becoming his shooting range. Arak the sugar snipe still happens. It is still insane. But what if, in this timeline, it is not his first miracle? Just the first one the world cannot ignore. By Dressrosa, stories have already leaked from Sabaody, from Marineford's tremors. from nameless islands where a single shot flipped an entire war. So when Usopp plants himself at extreme range, observation hockey flaring like a pressure wave, this is not a desperate gamble. This is a calculated execution. He locks onto Sugar's presence through walls, toys, and chaos, feeling her fear spike the instant she realizes someone is watching. Thanks to his new ability to fuse observation with trajectory math, he curves the pop green around obstacles, threads it through collapsing rubble, and detonates it right in front of her face. She drops. The toys turn back. But the crazy part was that to the people of Dressrosa, this is only the visible tip of what he is doing. While Luffy and Law charge the palace and Zoro clashes against Pika, Usopp quietly becomes the strongest support unit on the battlefield. He is not just sniping enemies, he is dismantling an empire's infrastructure in real time. Every officer who tries to regroup, tagged and dropped, every execution squad heading for the Colosseum prisoners, erased before they turn a corner. He uses plant-based explosives to blow open underground corridors, freeing fighters who never even see their savior's face. Then he looks up at the birdcage. Just how much control does Doflamingo really have if someone starts attacking the mechanism itself? Usopp studies the pattern of the strings, tracks the subtle tremors along the wires, and identifies anchor points buried in towers and cliff faces. Shot by shot, he destroys those anchors, forcing the cage to warp, stall, and shudder. It does not fully break, but every second of delay is bought by a sniper no one can reach. This new role reshapes the Straw Hats. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are still the frontline monsters, but in Dressrosa they move under a different aura. Usopp calls firing lanes and danger zones, redirects charges, and times cover fire with brutal precision. Luffy trusts his voice in the Den Mushi mid-sprint. Zoro adjusts his path when Usopp warns of incoming strings. The crew stops being a chaotic brawl squad and starts feeling like a coordinated war unit. On the ground, civilians and gladiators watch miracles stack. Giants seem to drop from the sky exactly where they are needed. Toys become human in synchronized waves. A single unseen shot changes the fate of an entire country. Rumors fuse with reality until one name sticks: God Usopp. Cut away for a second. Somewhere in Mariajois, a world government dossier snaps shut. The file reads, Usopp, alias God Usopp. Confirmed feats: long-range structural destruction, mass liberation events, battlefield-wide support, potential threat level, Admiral-class support unit. Several lines are blacked out in thick ink. Then the scene slams back to Dressrosa, where that support unit is already sighting his next impossible target, and the world has no idea that Wano will push this awakening even further. Wano and beyond. When a support becomes a strategic nuke. The moment the camera cuts to Wano, that hidden report stops feeling like theory and turns into pure, terrifying application. On Onigashima's Skull Dome, the worst generation clash with two Yonko. But what if this time there was a third presence shaping the entire rooftop war from the shadows? Usopp, already awakened as a long-range strategic weapon. He never stands in the spotlight beside Luffy, Zoro, Law, and Kid. He doesn't need to. His aura is the invisible grid covering the battlefield. While Kaido's dragon form coils through the storm, every time he charges a bolo breath, there is a split-second tremor in his lungs that only advanced observation hockey can feel. Usopp reads that twitch, leads the shot, and plants explosive pop greens into Kaido's open jaw, forcing misfires that shear the horned dome instead of the captain's. Zeus and Prometheus try to flank. Seeds burst mid-air, binding them, while precision impact rounds shatter weaker homies before they can even reach Big Mom's side. Thanks to his new ability, the rooftop fight stops being 5 against 2 and becomes 5+ an unseen artillery god. He calls wind trajectories into Nami's transponder snail, warns Zoro half a heartbeat before a Thunder Bagua swing, and tags Law with coordinates for instant room swaps around incoming blasts. Just how much does that change the Yonko's confidence when their unavoidable finishers keep whiffing by inches? Down below, Alliance warfare turns into a coordinated siege instead of a chaotic brawl. Usopp stays high on the skull, but his influence stretches across the entire island. When the numbers charge the samurai lines, their ankles explode in synchronized patterns as seeds buried earlier detonate, dropping giants before they even taste blood. Flying gifters trying to dive into the live floor get picked off mid-glide, their bodies crashing harmlessly away from civilians. He triangulates beast pirates' officers by sound and hockey signatures, sniping commanders like Who's Who and Sasaki before they can reinforce key choke points. The first sign that something is fundamentally different comes from the Yonko themselves. Kaido, who calls almost everyone brats and weaklings, starts glaring at the sky between swings, veins bulging as unseen shots keep clipping his eyes, joints, and scars. Big Mom, who laughs off fodder, roars Usopp's name directly, ordering her homies to destroy that human sniper as if he were an admiral. In this timeline, Usopp is no longer background Straw Hat support. He is a named threat in Yonko calculus, a strategic nuke whose existence can tilt wars. But the crazy part was that inside, none of that erases Syrup Village. In the split seconds between shots, he still remembers shaking hands. The liaise told to 3 kids about thousands of men at his back. Now the lies are real, the power is real. And yet the fear of dying, of failing his crew, never leaves. Every time he pulls the trigger on a shot that could save hundreds, he also feels the weight of hundreds if he misses. How long can someone that scared keep firing like a machine? This is where the meta question creeps in. Usopp was always meant to be the audience's window, the normal human in a world of monsters. If his awakening turns him into the linchpin of Yonko-level warfare, does he stay that human core, or does he slowly become another force of nature the story revolves around? That when the war for the One Piece finally begins, is he still the boy who wanted to be a brave warrior of the sea? Or something far more dangerous to his own heart? Because the next stage of this timeline forces him to choose what kind of legend he is willing to become. The price of power, what we lose and what we gain. This is where the fantasy crashes into the reality of storytelling. A Yonko-adjacent Usopp sounds incredible on the battlefield, but what does that actually do to the heart of One Piece? Just how much power can he gain early before the story itself starts to bend around him? On the gain side, the picture is clear. An early strong Usopp turns the Straw Hats from a scrappy band of misfits into a real pirate task force. Luffy becomes the spear, charging straight into the enemy's face. Usopp becomes the rifle, deleting threats from impossible range. Nami shifts into full navigator tactician, chaining weather setups with precision snipes. Every battle turns into a coordinated assault instead of a chaotic brawl. Arlong's officers never get to terrorize the village. They're erased the moment they step onto the shore. Baroque Works agents fall before they even understand where the shots are coming from. The moment the crew steps into the Grand Line, the entire power structure tilts. Thanks to his new ability, Usopp can control sightlines, deny enemy abilities before they activate, and create constant pressure. Alabasta's war feels less like a desperate scramble and more like a special ops operation. Enies Lobby becomes a shooting gallery where key CP9 members are softened or outright destroyed before the heavyweight duels even start. The fights gain tactics, coordination, and spectacle. But what if that tactical perfection comes with a brutal cost? The first sign of loss is subtle. Fear stops being Usopp's main battlefield. In canon, his trembling hands, his lies about 10,000 men, and his desperate bluffs are the tremors of a normal human standing in a world of monsters. That gap between who he is and who he wants to be is the core of his awakening as a character. Shrink that gap too early, and the arc shifts from human struggle into pure power fantasy. The crazy part was that his lies slowly becoming true over hundreds of chapters is not just a gag. It is structure. Brave warrior of the sea, terrifying sniper, hero of giants. These titles land because the audience watches every failure, every retreat. He has every moment where he stands up, even though he is absolutely outmatched. Take away the helplessness at Arlong Park, the breakdown at Enies Lobby, the insecurity behind Soga King and his mask, and the emotional impact of those stands drops instantly. There is collateral damage too. A miracle sniper shot that can solve almost anything threatens to steal growth beats from Nami, Chopper, and even Robin. Moments where Nami's navigation and weather reading save the crew, where Chopper's medical genius and courage under fire turn the tide, or where Robin calmly dismantles enemies with intellect and experience, can all be overshadowed by the easier answer. Let Usopp pull the trigger. Their competence shines best when the crew has no overwhelming safety net. At its core, One Piece is about dreams and the brutal distance between the weak, scared person you are and the legend you want to become. Usopp represents that distance more than anyone. Turn him into a monster too soon, and the series gains a stronger aura of power, but loses one of its strongest mirrors to the audience. So, which version would you choose? The cooler, dominant sniper who shapes entire wars from the start? Or the painfully human liar who spends decades closing the gap between his words and his reality? Because the answer to that question decides what kind of story this alternate One Piece is allowed to become next. Your turn. Rewrite Usopp's legend. And that is where the spotlight turns to you. We have taken Usopp from that syrup village fork in the road where a scared liar on a hill could have awakened real power. All the way through an East Blue that he personally dominates with precision shots and improvised weapons. We watched him step into the Grand Line as an actual frontline sniper, rewriting Baroque works, reshaping Alabasta, and turning every battlefield into his own personal shooting range. Then we pushed him further, through an Enies Lobby, where his presence changes who falls, who stands, and how loudly the world hears the name Sniper of the Straw Hats. Into a Rosa, where the God Usopp legend explodes even harder. And finally, to Wano, where his mind and aim help choreograph entire wars from the shadows. But what if the story did not diverge where this video chose? Just how much would change if the first sign of his awakening came later or even earlier? Heck, the core question never leaves. What happens when the weakest Straw Hat stops being weak too soon? And that fragile human mirror hardens into steel before the crew really needs it. The moment he steps out of that role, every tremor runs outward. Battles end faster. Relationships twist under the weight of new expectations. The entire soul of One Piece bends around a sniper who can actually back up every word from day one. So, here is your mission. Pick the exact point where his legend truly ignites. Is it Syrup Village, where he awakens some primitive observation haki and turns the Kuro raid into a one-man firing line? Is it Arlong Park, where he no longer runs from fishmen, but systematically destroys Arlong's officers before Luffy ever reaches the tower? Is it Alabasta, where his engineering ability and early awakening let him solo Mr. Section 4 and Miss Merry Christmas in seconds and then assist against Crocodile from long range? Or is it Enies Lobby, where he awakens under the pressure of the Buster Call and starts sniping CP9 off the rooftops before they even reach their strongest forms? Choose one fight. Rewrite it around an early strong Usopp. Who does he actually solo? Django and Kuro's entire crew? Chu and Kurubi? Mr. 4, Miss Merry Christmas, and even a weakened Crocodile from a hidden vantage point? Would he be able to tag Lucci mid-shave? Or even crack Doflamingo's composure with a perfectly timed shot that saves Law? Thanks to his new ability, does someone survive who originally died? Or does someone fall who originally escaped? Then push it further. If the world already fears his aim, what alternate nicknames replace God Usopp? The long-range devil? The first shot of the Straw Hats? And when Usopp finally meets a son whose aura already rivals his own, does that reunion become a proud passing of the torch? Or a quiet war between two of the strongest snipers alive? If this kind of reality-bending what if excites you, there is more coming. What if Sanji unlocked Ifrit Jambe back in East Blue and turned every early war into a blazing massacre? What if Zoro never picked up cursed swords and had to awaken a different kind of power to stay among the strongest? Drop your Usopp rewrites in the comments. Tell which scenario you want next and make sure to subscribe with notifications on so you do not miss the next time this channel destroys the rules of One Piece and rewrites the entire battlefield.